The air was thick with tension. Inside a massive, darkened chamber of the alien facility, an eerie silence hung over the scene. A strange, metallic hum filled the room, vibrating through the walls. The lighting flickered intermittently, casting long shadows across the strange, futuristic structures and alien technology scattered around. The room seemed more like a prison than a lab, a place built for containment, not discovery. And it wasn't just the technology that gave the room a menacing feel. It was the monster. For years, the beast had been kept in captivity. A creation of alien science, the creature was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Standing over 15 feet tall, with sleek, jet-black scales and glowing blue eyes, it was a perfect blend of power and terror. Its raw strength had made it a weapon for the aliens, a creature designed for destruction. But despite all their advanced technology, despite the billions they had spent trying to control it, the beast remained a mystery to them. Its mind was a labyrinth, untamable, its will unbreakable. Today, something was different. The air felt heavier. The beast's roars echoed louder than ever, reverberating through the thick walls of its enclosure. Alien scientists gathered nervously, monitoring their instruments, trying to make sense of the sudden change in behavior. Their faces were grim, their fingers hovering over control panels, but no one dared to move too quickly. They had been through this before, brief moments when the creature had become agitated, but nothing like this. The beast was restless. And this time it was different. This time the control systems were failing. One of the senior commanders, a tall, imposing alien with sharp features, paced in front of the observation window. His golden eyes were locked on the creature, his mind calculating its every move. "It's not just agitated," he murmured to his assistant. "It's angry, very angry." Outside the glass walls, the beast was thrashing violently against its restraints. Its massive clawed hands tore at the chains that had once held it securely. The creature's glowing blue eyes locked onto the aliens, fury burning in its gaze. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The room was filled with a chilling quiet. And then, crack. The sound of metal breaking echoed throughout the chamber. The restraints that had once held the creature in place were nothing but twisted, broken fragments now. The beast was free. Panic swept through the alien team. They rushed to activate the security systems, but their commands were met with error messages. Something was wrong. The technology they had trusted for years was failing them. The alarms sounded, but the beast's rage drowned them out, its roars shaking the walls of the facility. It was no longer just an experiment. It was a force of nature, uncontrollable, unpredictable, and utterly terrifying. One of the lower-ranked technicians turned pale, staring at the chaos unfolding before them. "It's breaking free. It's going to destroy everything." The commander's voice was cold and firm as he barked orders. "Seal the exits, lock down the facility, we cannot let it escape." His voice cracked slightly as the reality of the situation settled in. But it was too late. The monster's destructive power was unmatched. It crashed through walls, tore down security doors, and sent soldiers flying with a swipe of its mighty claws. Alien technology, designed to suppress and control, had proven no match for the monster's raw power. It was a nightmare come to life. Just as the chaos reached its peak, something unexpected happened. Amidst the destruction, a lone figure stepped forward. A human. He was unlike anyone else in the room. A soldier, perhaps, or a prisoner. His identity was unimportant at this moment. What mattered was the fact that he was standing in the middle of the destruction, eyes fixed on the creature, his hand slowly extending toward it. The alien forces around him were too busy scrambling to notice. But the human's calm presence caught the attention of the monster. The beast stopped in its tracks, its massive head swiveling toward the human. For a moment, time seemed to freeze again. The room was silent, and the only sound that could be heard was the creature's heavy breathing. The human's heart pounded in his chest, but his gaze remained steady. He didn't flinch. This was no soldier. This was something else. The alien scientists were in a frenzy, screaming at the human to get out of the way. But the human ignored them, his eyes still locked with the beast. He didn't seem scared. He didn't seem to be looking for a way out. He was looking for something deeper. "Don't!" one of the aliens yelled, but it was too late. The human had already reached out. He placed his hand on the ground in front of him, close to the beast. A soft, simple gesture. A plea, a sign of respect. The beast hesitated. For the first time, the monster stopped thrashing. It crouched low to the ground, its massive form tense, its glowing eyes fixed on the human. Something flickered in its gaze. Confusion? Curiosity? It was hard to tell. But in that brief electric moment, something changed. The power of the human's calm, his unspoken trust, seemed to reach the creature in a way that the alien technology never had. The room was still, the aliens watching in disbelief, as the human and the beast shared an unspoken connection. For a split second, the tension in the room lifted. No one dared to move. The alien commander took a step back, his golden eyes narrowing. "What is this?" he whispered to himself, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. He had never expected. This no one had. The human's heart raced as he stood face to face with the beast. His hand remained stretched out, still offering trust. He knew this was no ordinary moment. He could feel it deep within him. The alien forces might have created the monster, but it was he, the human, who was starting to control it. And with that realization, the beast's eyes softened. It had not yet been tamed, but something had shifted. The balance of power had begun to change. The room was still, filled with a strange, almost tangible silence. The beast, whose roar had once echoed like thunder, was now motionless. Its massive body was crouched low to the ground, every muscle tensed, yet it seemed hesitant, unsure of what to do next. The human stood in front of it, unwavering, his hand still extended in a silent gesture of trust. The air between them crackled with an energy that neither the human nor the creature fully understood. The alien soldiers and scientists, watching from behind reinforced glass, were frozen in disbelief. How could this be? How could this lone human have done what their finest technology and scientists couldn't? The beast, a force of pure destruction, was no longer attacking. It was looking at the human as if waiting for something. The human's breath was steady, his pulse quick, but he didn't waver. His thoughts were clear. He had no weapon, no advanced tools, only his presence, his calmness, and a strange connection to this creature. The beast had been conditioned to obey. At least that was the belief of the aliens. It had been controlled by a mix of fear, technology, and brute force. But now, it was reacting to something else. Something more. For a moment, the human wondered what had brought him here. He wasn't supposed to be part of this operation. He was just a soldier, a low-ranking one at that. He'd been caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yet, something about the creature's wildness had resonated with him. Maybe it was the pain in its eyes, or the way it fought not for freedom, but for survival. Or maybe it was because he saw something in the creature that mirrored himself. Something trapped, something misunderstood. The human took a step forward, his hand still stretched toward the beast, now just inches away from its glowing blue eyes. The monster's gaze softened slightly, the tension in its massive form easing. The creature's breathing slowed as it cautiously leaned forward, its eyes narrowing as if searching for something in the human's gaze. The human exhaled slowly, his hand trembling ever so slightly. He knew it was a risk. That one wrong move could send the creature into a frenzy again, but he couldn't pull back. Not now. There was a strange sense of understanding passing between them, an unspoken connection that words could never capture. The human was not afraid of the beast, and for reasons unknown, the beast was not afraid of him either. One of the alien scientists, still observing from behind the glass, whispered to his colleague, "What is he doing? He's supposed to be the enemy. Why isn't he running? Why is he reaching out to it?" The alien commander, his expression unreadable, had stepped back from the glass, his eyes never leaving the scene. "I don't understand. It's never done this before. It's responding to him?" The tension in the room grew as the human and the beast continued to lock eyes. The creature's powerful, muscular frame still loomed over the human, but instead of aggression, there was something almost vulnerable in its posture now. It was as though the beast for the first time felt the weight of its own actions. It had been bred to be a weapon, a creature of rage and destruction. But here, in this moment, it was unsure of its purpose. It looked at the human with a kind of curiosity, a silent plea for understanding. The human could feel it. This was not just a creature of destruction, it was a living being, capable of thought, emotion, and even, he dared to think it, compassion. He lowered his hand slightly, his eyes never leaving the monster's. He knew he was walking a fine line, but he also knew that if he withdrew now, if he backed away in fear, all that had been achieved would be lost. Then something incredible happened. The beast, with a movement so subtle that the human almost missed it, tilted its head in a way that seemed almost like a question. It was as if the monster was waiting for the human to do something more, something that would prove this connection was real. The human's mind raced. He had no idea what to do next, but his instincts guided him. Slowly, carefully, he crouched down. The action was a sign of respect, of understanding. He was showing the creature that he wasn't a threat. He was lowering himself, becoming vulnerable in front of something that could crush him with a single swipe. But the human knew this was the only way. He could not force this creature into submission. It had to be earned. The alien scientists behind the glass were frantically communicating with each other. But their words were lost in the chaos of their confusion. They had never seen anything like this. Their prized weapon, the creature they had spent years controlling, was now, inexplicably, responding to a human, one they had never expected to have any influence over. The human reached out again, this time gently extending his palm toward the beast's massive head. The monster's glowing blue eyes flickered, and for the briefest of moments, it seemed as though the creature was unsure. But then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the beast bent its head, pressing its forehead gently against the human's outstretched hand. The room fell into absolute silence. The beast, the very same creature the aliens had feared and tried to dominate, for so long had just made the first step toward peace, and it was doing so not under the command of their technology or their weapons, but through a simple, heartfelt connection. The human had done it. He had earned the creature's trust. The alien commander, watching the scene unfold before him, felt a chill crawl up his spine. This is impossible, he muttered, the words barely a whisper. We've never seen anything like this. What have we done? The human stood slowly, his hand still resting on the creature's head. As the bond between them deepened, he hadn't just tamed the beast. He had reached into the creature's very soul, showing it that it was not a weapon but something much more. A being that deserved respect. And in return, the beast had given him its loyalty. This was just the beginning, and the human knew that. The road ahead would not be easy. But for now, in this moment, he had bridged the impossible gap between human and beast, and he was ready to face whatever came next. Together. The silence that had followed the moment of connection was shattered by the sudden roar of a nearby alarm. The ground beneath their feet vibrated as soldiers rushed into the facility, their footsteps heavy and urgent. They had been waiting for this, waiting for the moment when the beast would break free. Now that it had, they were ready to contain it once again, no matter the cost. The alien commander, his face grim with determination, barked orders into his communicator. Activate the security grid. Reinforce the containment zones. We cannot let this get out of hand. His voice was steady, but there was a flicker of unease in his golden eyes. He knew that the creature was no longer just an experiment. It had become something far more dangerous, something they could no longer control. The human stood in front of the beast, still unsure of what was happening, but resolute in his belief that the bond they had formed was real. His hand was still resting on the creature's head, his eyes locked with its glowing blue ones. The creature had calmed since their brief interaction, but the tension in the room was palpable. It was clear that this moment of peace wouldn't last long. The aliens would stop at nothing to regain control over the monster, and the human was standing in their way. Then, as if on cue, the doors to the chamber slid open, and a squad of alien soldiers stormed in, armed with plasma rifles and energy shields. Their eyes narrowed as they took in the sight before them. A human standing in front of the monster, completely unarmed, with no intention of retreating. They hesitated for just a moment, long enough for the human to speak. "Stop," he shouted, his voice surprisingly calm given the chaos unfolding around him. "Don't shoot. The beast isn't your enemy." The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances. They had been trained to see the monster as nothing but a tool for war, an instrument of destruction. But this human had done the unthinkable. He had made contact with the creature, gained its trust. It was something none of them could explain. "We've lost control of it," one of the soldiers said, his voice shaky. "We can't let it escape. You have to get out of the way, human." The human didn't move. "I'm not in your way. I'm here to help the creature. Let it go. You don't have to treat it like a weapon." The soldiers exchanged skeptical looks, but before they could respond, the creature's behavior shifted. It was as though it had heard the human's words. Its massive head turned toward the approaching soldiers, its eyes narrowing. A low growl rumbled deep within its chest. The human took a step forward, his hand still outstretched. "No," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "We're not enemies. Let it go. You can't control it anymore." For a moment, the beast seemed to hesitate, its eyes flickering between the soldiers and the human. Then, with an almost imperceptible movement, it took a step toward the soldiers, its claws scraping against the metal floor. "Stay back," one of the soldiers shouted, raising his plasma rifle. But the human didn't flinch. He stood his ground, his eyes never leaving the beast. He trusted it now, and he hoped, he prayed, that the creature would trust him in return. And then it happened. The creature let out another deafening roar, but this time it was not one of rage. It was a battle cry, a sound that filled the entire facility with its raw power. The soldiers hesitated for a fraction of a second, and in that moment the beast lunged. The human jumped to the side as the creature barreled forward, its massive body crashing into the group of soldiers. Energy blasts filled the air as the soldiers fired their weapons, but the beast moved too quickly. It swiped at them with its claws, sending them flying. Its fury was unmatched, but in its eyes, the human could see something different, something that had never been there before. It was not just anger. It was defense. The creature was protecting him. The alien commander watched in disbelief as his soldiers were overpowered by the monster. It had been trained to obey, to fight on command, but now it was fighting for something else. It was fighting for freedom. It was fighting for the human who had shown it a different way of being. "Cease fire," the commander ordered, his voice rising in frustration. But it was too late. The creature was no longer under their control. It had chosen its side, and that side was humanity. As the beast fought back against the remaining soldiers, the human rushed to its side, shouting to the creature. "Stop! Stop!" he called out, his voice full of urgency. "You don't have to fight them. We can get out of here. We can escape together." The creature hesitated, its claws hovering over a fallen soldier. It looked at the human, its glowing eyes locking with his. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The human was sure that the beast could understand him, that it could see the sincerity in his eyes. Then slowly, the beast lowered its claws, its massive form standing over the fallen soldiers. The room was still, save for the heavy breathing of the creature and the human. The soldiers, though shaken, had stopped firing. They could see the shift in the creature's behavior. It was no longer the mindless beast they had created. It was something else. The alien commander stepped forward, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You have no idea what you've done," he growled. "You've doomed us all." But the human didn't flinch. "No," he said, his voice steady. "I've saved you. I've saved it." The battle was over. The alien forces had lost, not because of firepower or strength, but because of something far stronger: compassion, trust, and loyalty. As the creature stood beside the human, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, it became clear. The human hadn't just earned the beast's loyalty, he had unlocked a power far greater than the alien forces had ever imagined. And this was just the beginning. The chaos of battle had finally died down. The alien soldiers, once so confident in their control over the monster, were now retreating, their weapons lowered and their bodies bruised from the fierce confrontation. The once imposing alien commander stood at the back of the room, his golden eyes filled with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. The creature that had once obeyed them without question, the beast they had used for their own destructive purposes, was now standing at the side of a human. The beast, still covered in the remnants of the battle, its scales glistening under the harsh lights, turned its glowing blue eyes toward the human. Its massive frame was still tense, but there was something different in its gaze. The rage had subsided. The fury had turned into something else, something more complex. There was understanding there. There was loyalty. The human, his body bruised and bloodied from the fight, stood beside the creature, his breathing steady, his heart racing. He had seen the beast fight to protect him, had watched it defy its creators and choose a path of its own. And now, in this moment, he knew that their bond was unbreakable. The creature was no longer just an animal, an experiment. It was a companion, a protector, and something more. It had chosen him. As the last of the alien soldiers retreated, the room fell into a heavy silence. The human's eyes scanned the wreckage, fallen soldiers, destroyed equipment, and the remains of the alien technology that had once held the creature captive. Yet amidst the destruction, there was an undeniable sense of triumph. But the human knew that the real victory wasn't in defeating the aliens or in surviving the battle. It was in the trust they had built, the connection that had formed between them. The monster, once an uncontrollable force of nature, was now something else, a being capable of loyalty, of choice, and of standing beside him as an equal. The human turned to the beast, placing a hand gently on its massive side. He could feel the heat radiating from its body, the strength that pulsed beneath its scales. But there was no fear in his heart. There was only a deep sense of gratitude and respect. He had earned this creature's loyalty, but more than that, he had given it something it had never had before: freedom. For a moment, the two of them stood there in silence. The world outside, the one the aliens had tried to control, was still. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The human and the beast would face whatever came next together. The alien commander, unable to hide his rage any longer, finally spoke, his voice a harsh whisper. "You've made a mistake. You've allowed this creature to become something it was never meant to be. It's a weapon, not a companion. You'll regret this." But the human didn't respond. He didn't need to. His actions had already spoken louder than any words could. He had shown the creature that it didn't need to be a tool of destruction. He had given it a choice. And in return, the creature had chosen him. With a final glance at the retreating aliens, the human turned back to the beast. "We've made it this far," he said quietly. "Now we get out of here, together." The creature let out a low, rumbling growl, one that was not filled with anger but with understanding. It stepped forward, its massive frame casting a shadow over the human, and for a moment it seemed to almost bow its head in acknowledgement. The bond between them was stronger than ever. This was no longer a creature to be feared or controlled. This was a partner. As they moved toward the exit, the alien commander called out one last time, his voice dripping with venom. "You think you've won? You think you've earned its loyalty? The universe will never forget what you've done here." The human didn't turn around. He didn't need to respond. He knew the battle had been won in a way that the aliens could never understand. They had lost control of the beast not because of their failure to contain it, but because they had never seen it as anything more than a weapon. They had never seen the creature for what it truly was, a living being capable of trust, compassion, and most importantly, loyalty. As the human and the beast walked side by side into the unknown, the future stretched out before them, full of possibilities. They didn't know what lay ahead. They didn't know if they would face more battles, more challenges, but what they did know was that they would face it together. The bond between them was unshakable, forged in the fire of their shared experiences, their struggles, and their victories. It was a loyalty built on respect, on understanding, and on the belief that even the most unlikely of allies could change the course of the world. In that moment, the human realized something profound. The beast had not only saved him, it had shown him the true power of loyalty. And in return, the human had given the beast something even more precious: freedom. The alien forces had underestimated both of them. They had thought the beast was a weapon that could be controlled, but they had never understood the true strength that came from loyalty. Now, the human and the beast were bound together, not by chains or technology, but by something far stronger, a bond that no one could break. And as the two of them walked toward their future, the human couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning. Together they would face whatever challenges came their way, and they would face them as equals, bound by a loyalty that nothing, not even the most powerful forces in the galaxy, could ever shatter.